Welcome to Thriver TV, the place to break free from narcissistic abuse with quantum tools and understandings. Today, I want to deeply share with you how I deal with my emotional triggers. And this is really important because it's our triggers which are handing us our salvation. Mind you, it took me decades of pain to work this out. Before then, as a result of trying to avoid my triggers, I was forever stuck in emotional fear, pain and reaction, and the ongoing traumatizing events that were my life. Thank goodness I discovered that there is a completely different way to deal with this, a way that works, and it's my absolute joy to share that with you today. But before I do, I'd like to thank you for subscribing to my channel and supporting the Thriver mission. If you haven't as yet done so, please do. And if you enjoyed this video, please make sure you give it a thumbs up. Okay, let's dive into today's episode. Let's have a look at the old consensus about emotional triggers. Human conditioning has taught us to try to ignore and escape any painful emotional trigger, meaning if we feel dense or painful energy inside our body, to try to do everything possible to get away from that feeling. Many of us had the messages since being very young of try not to think about it. Or we were talked out of our bad feelings by people who also were experts at talking themselves out of their own bad feelings and therefore did not have the capacity to validate ours. Yet we know that when we're told to ignore what we feel or pick up some distraction or what we are feeling isn't true for us, that this doesn't feel good. Life experience has also shown us that the inner bad feelings usually keep coming back. It's so interesting now when I introduce people to the Thriver way to heal for real from abuse. They may initially feel horrified about turning inwards to self-partner and meet their feelings. And why wouldn't they, after being indoctrinated into believing that emotional triggers should be avoided at all costs? Even law of attraction principles declare that the way through to a happy and healthy life is to ignore the bad feelings and just focus on the good and try to create new neuro pathways as a result of doing that. Many of us who tried gallantly to achieve this found out that the painful triggers that were often in repeat didn't go away, no matter how hard we tried to think our way out of them. And what was extremely painful was that the triggers would often explode from inside of us at random times. They may have caused us to hand power away to other people because of being derailed emotionally. They may have caused us to lash out at people who we love simply because we were feeling overwhelmed within ourselves. Also, they can make the creation, expansion and solution of our life incredibly difficult for us because we're continually plagued by painful feelings that are taking up all of our energy trying to survive them. Then, of course, we have to come up with even more extreme strategies to try to escape the inner pain that is going off inside of us, especially after suffering the incredible trauma of narcissistic abuse. When you are suffering the triggers of feeling anxiety, depression, powerlessness, helplessness, or even panic attacks, until you learn how to handle your triggers in a self-partnered way, you're susceptible to trying to find something outside of yourself to try to switch the trigger off. This could mean that you go for food, cigarettes, alcohol, shopping, excessive device time, hooking up with people who hurt you, and all sorts of healthy and even desperate measures to try to get out of the pain. It's only when you get in your body and can be present healthily with your triggers, that this can stop. Let's have a look at turning it around by turning in. It wasn't until I experienced my complete breakthrough experience with narcissistic abuse and being left with my shattered inner being without any outer props left to go to, that I started to get a grasp on the truth of this. I needed to turn inwards. And so I did with this declaration. Inner being, I'm here for you, and I am never deserting you again. I realized my emotional triggers, which were the signals of my inner traumas, have become my normal, but this was in no way natural. It's not who I really was as my true self. It's not our fault that we've had so many traumas impregnated into us from the outside, from our past lives, our ancestors, childhoods, and the human collective experience of limiting painful beliefs about gender, age, race, religion, or whatever it may be. And of course, people who were dealing with their own extreme levels of trauma. Hurt people hurt people. Trauma, sadly, is a part of the human experience. We've all been infected to some degree. After being narcissistically abused, the trauma within you is activated to such an extreme level that it reaches critical mass. At this point, life simply cannot go on as normal. And it's virtually impossible to be able to cognitively think our way out of the pain. Often, researching and learning all we can about abusers and our abuse symptoms will not ease it either. When I turned inwards, I discovered so many painful fractures that were programmed beliefs and painful emotional experiences in regard to myself, life, and others. The truth was, I did not feel safe in my body. And this was the battle with anxiety, depression, and the feelings of helplessness and hopelessness. How on earth can we feel good in our body after experiencing significant trauma? How can we feel safe? Even before I developed the profound inner healing tools of Quantum Freedom Healing, which is the NARP program to heal myself, I started to understand that rather than try to get relief from the outside, that the only true relief needed to be between me and myself. I learnt to say to myself, I bless and accept this feeling. I want you to imagine having an emotional trigger go off inside you. And rather than abandon yourself by trying to disconnect from it or blaming yourself for having it, I want you to open your heart and breathe and say to yourself, I bless and accept this feeling. And you may want to pause this video to recall something that hurts and do that. Now feel the effects of that in your body. It would be usual for you to start feeling some relief because your inner being heaves a sigh of relief knowing that you have finally showed up for him or her. The illusion is that your inner being has wanted something or somebody else to take away the pain, but your inner being has actually been waiting for you to turn inwards to self-partner and integrate and love him or her back to wholeness all along. Being willing to do this and validate the feeling as being blessed and something that you accept starts to reverse all of those beliefs that we've taken on from our forebears, that our feelings are invalid and not deserving of our attention and love, which really means that we have been deemed invalid. I hope you understand that your emotional inner state is who you are. It's where your entire life is being generated from. Hence, in order to get life right, this part of you requires your devotion and self-partnering. Okay, I want to talk about this, why triggers are so fantastic. You may think that I'm crazy by saying triggers are fantastic. Yet I know 100% that they are. I now know that all of my triggers are happening for me and not to me. What I mean by this is when a trigger goes off inside of me, this is a signal that allows me to know that a part of me is not aligned with my desires, my true self, and my soul's true destiny. It's like a GPS signal that is telling me I'm off course. And I love this, even though once upon a time, of course, I detested it. Since being aligned with my Thriver life and having the profound quantum tool, Quantum Freedom Healing, which is NARP, I've been supremely dedicated to addressing the triggers that arise within my inner being and loading them up and releasing them and freeing myself from them. This has allowed me to release my subconscious from those old painful programs and replace them with my super conscious self, which is my highest potential on any topic, by bringing that down into the space where the old trauma once was. This system of healing completely bypasses the mind, which tries to work it all out, usually unsuccessfully, and creates a shift somatically in our visceral emotional center in such a way that it doesn't have to be understood logically in order to be experienced. What I discovered is that when the trigger is gone, a resounding peace replaces it. And this thing that I've been struggling with regarding myself, people, situations, or events starts to heal and resolve. I also discovered that the most incredible synchronicities, opportunities, and even miracles start to appear that completely match the positive shift that I've just had in my body. This I know with every ounce of my being, that the composition of our inner being is directly connected with all of the resources of life that are entering our experience as our experience. When we shift, it shifts. When your beingness is changed, you have changed. This is so much more effective than trying to think your way into a new way of being. My everyday experience before self-partnering with my triggers was trying to negate painful feelings in my body with all sorts of personal development. This was only at best managing my still existing trauma and not healing it. And when my efforts would slip, my addictions would start to take over. All of this was exhausting, especially because I was still battling ferociously the evidence of my unhealed triggers that were coming to me via people and situations. Since discovering and working with the truth about triggers, which is, I bless and accept you as a signal of something that I can shift, release, and replace in order to go up to the next highest level of my true self, my life experience has changed beyond description. I hope you are really getting this. Okay, so once again, when imagining having a trigger going off inside, I want you to repeat this declaration after me. Let's say this together. So think of something that hurts as a trigger. And then let's say this together. I bless and accept you as a signal of something that I can shift. release and replace. In order to go up to the next higher level of my true self. How does that feel in your body? Does it feel like relief? Does it feel like truth? I want you to pause this video and write how it feels for you below. Okay, so I really want you to know that I totally validate that at the start of your narcissistic abuse recovery journey, there are lots of triggers to address. Initially, there is a lot of work to do to release and reprogram your inner being from intense toxic trauma that is making it difficult for you to function. And this is why having an effective tool to be able to meet, hold, load up, release, and replace your triggers certainly makes it so much easier. If everything that I've talked about today resonates deeply with you, you can get your true healing journey started by clicking the link at the top right of this video. So I hope this video made sense to you regarding a new, empowered, and radically transformative way to work with your triggers. And please share with the people who you know it could help. And as always, I look forward to answering your comments and your questions below. So keep smiling, keep healing, and keep thriving because there's nothing else to do. Lots of love. Bye-bye.